But let's start with the definition of creativity. What actually creativity means, why it's important to be creative as a coach, and how can we be more creative in coaching. So what actually creativity means? Creativity is our ability to think about task or a problem in a new, different way. It is our ability to use our imagination to generate new ideas. We will learn today that creative person looks like anybody of you, and we all can see things and problems from unique perspective. One of the most beautiful messages I found about creativity is contagious, pass it on. So we hope that we can indeed pass it on to you today. We all made a wish to be creative for our players. However, some of us can have a doubt sometimes that we never been creative. So have you ever heard someone to say, "Oh, Heather, she is so creative. I wish I was creative like that." It sounds like creativity is natural, like, for example, the ability to sing or paint. But other times people say, "I'm going to a webinar to learn how to be more creative." So that sounds like creativity is a kind of skill that any one of us can learn. So which one is it? We more thought it's a skill, and I can reveal the answer now that it's actually both. So creativity is technically inherited, but by everyone. It's more of human trait than a gift. So maybe you can think a bit differently about yourself now if you thought until now that you are not creative at all. An interesting science fact is that children are born creative but lose their creativity as they transition through life. Whether this creativity corrosion, let's say, is caused by life experiences, schooling, the fear of failure, or any other reason is a different debate. But the good news is a creativity can be molded and relearned. But the bad news is non-creative behavior can be also learned during the life. So now let's have a look for a little bit of analysis. And this, I really would like to be helpful as we can find ourselves in one of these squares. It might help us to define what type of creativity we're leaning for in our life. Also, it might help us to think about creativity of our players, because sometimes, and I found in this situation myself many times as a coach, we say to our players that they need to be creative and intuitive during the game in terms of tactics, for example. So they telling us back, "I'm not a creative person." So to realize now that everybody of us actually were born creative with this knowledge, we might help them to recognize what type of creativity they're leaning for in their life. And it's great that we can develop this area in our players as a coaches. So these 4 creativity exists. Creativity can be deliberate and cognitive. Cognitive skills are the core skills what our brain uses to think, read, learn, remember. It's about purpose of thinking, using the brain. So, for example, Thomas Alva Edison, the inventor of the electric bulb, was deliberate and cognitive creator. He ran experiment after experiment before he came up with invention. In Boccia, this could happen when I am advising to my player to create the most suitable playing chair or Boccia ramp, and we are improving the chair step by step. Creativity can be also deliberate and emotional, which is described as the aha moment, when we are having idea after idea after idea and it seems to be working. This leads us to the moment when our brain naturally but deliberately make a creative decision. So instead of focusing attention on a particular area of knowledge or expertise, the creative idea comes from our feelings or emotions. The third type of creativity is spontaneous and cognitive. Have you ever been working on a problem that you cannot solve? So the perfect example is a Newton under the tree and apple just fall right on his head. And this is the moment when he reveals its gravity. The last type of creativity is spontaneous and emotional. This is the kind of creativity when we think about great artists or musicians. The creative moments are quite powerful and there is no specific knowledge necessary. So it's not cognitive, but there is often skill as a writing or painting, or in Boccia, some players are incredibly talented for throwing. Yeah. So this is the last type of creativity. So these are 4 types of creativity, and maybe we can find ourselves what type of creativity we are the most. And maybe we can find our players in one of these squares, which might help us to recognize what type of creativity we can help them to develop. So now let's have a think why it is important to be creative as a coach. Creative coaching is a form of coaching that helps people develop their creative skills and work through any barriers what holds them back. I hope you will agree with me that these 3 reasons, what you can see on your screen right now, are some of the right answers for the question why it is important to be creative as a coach. Creativity opens mind and inspires collectively thinking. Creativity encourages and develops ideas. Creativity is one of the most important characteristics of an effective leader, and creativity opens up opportunities in problem solving, in achieving goals, and develops inspiration. So how we can be more creative in coaching? That's my last question. It's hard to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, but it may be just what we need sometimes to get more creative. So we know that creativity is not always something what just happens naturally. It can take quite a bit of work for some of us. It can be even more of challenge to inspire creativity in our players. It may be difficult, but it's certainly not impossible. And accomplishing can help to create a training environment that is more motivational, interesting, and educational. So how do we get there? So we all know best how creative we are personally and professionally. We all know best about ourselves. When we feel we would like to be even more creative, here are some tips. Be open to change our daily routine, your daily routine, to say yes more than no, to learn new things and think outside the box. So now I would like to click on the annotating again, and can you choose what quote, what defines you, what quote you feel the most? And now I would like you to do opposite. What quote, in what area you wish to develop yourself most, yeah. So in what area you wish to be more creative? So by doing this task, you can realize where is your own space to grow creativity and when is your strength in terms of creativity. Now, here are some tips about during your training session with beginners development and experienced player from one of the most creative person I met, Orna. So I will pass it to Orna now. Thank you very much.
So, hello everybody. I want to thank Michaela for the theory part of creativity. And now my part will be more practical. I will show you exercises that I'm using on court. I'm coaching beginners, intermediate, and a few elite players. I'm going to talk about the beginners and the intermediate part, and then Itzik will talk about the elite players. So when starting with new players, in my opinion, the exercises or the coaching, the session should be easy exercises, simple exercises. They need to understand the exercises really quickly, and they need to succeed. And if the exercise is more colorful, it's even better, because maybe for younger players, it's easy. If you just use the red, blue, and the white, it could be boring even for the coach sometimes. So I try to use as many colors as I can on court. So let me just start with a few examples. So recently I renovated my house, and I bought many things that came in a package, and they were really very good, very well wrapped. So I took one of the wrapping, this is a foam, blue foam, and I just, instead of throwing it to the garbage, I just created a pool for the balls, like in Jamboree classes. So you can imagine what the exercise was. Just put the balls inside the pool. When we celebrated our Independence Day, I saw a decoration hanging on the wall. Someone put it on the wall. And my thought immediately was, why put it on the wall when you can put it on the floor and use the holes for boccia balls? So we took it from the wall, put it on the floor, and used it for exercise. You probably all know bowling cones. You can use bowling cones, or instead just use bottles. Fill them with water, with sand. You can use the bottles in the bottles or the cones in many variations. You can line them up on one line. You can arrange them in different places on court. You can make the players hit the cone. You can make the players, ask the players to throw the ball between the cones. You can change the different spacing between the cones. If you take like a bottle and fill it with water, if you have beginners, then put a little water so the bottle will not be heavy. Then they can easily push and knock off the bottle. If you have more experienced players who need to use more force, you can fill the bottle with more water. This picture is called the physio battle. I found a physio ball laying on the gym with nobody using it. I just put the ball in the middle, put two groups of players on each side of court, gave them all the balls that I have, the new balls, the previous balls, and just made them move the physio ball from one side to the opponent's side. You can't see it here, but the ball pretty much stays in the middle because no one could move the ball. But it moved a little to each side, but at the end it stayed in the middle. But it was really fun, and there was a lot of laughter in this battle. I'm sure I hope you all have a dustpan in your house for the dirt. I used the dustpan at the beginning for something else. When I just started coaching boccia and I realized that I have to bend and pick up the balls all the time, I tried to think about a solution that will not make me pick up the balls all the time from the floor and bend over. So I took the dustpan, and after the player threw the balls, I would put the balls on the dustpan, pick it up, and give it to the players. And then I said, why work hard? Why should I put the balls in the dustpan? Let the players put the ball in the dustpan. And then I created this exercise. So I put the dustpan on the floor, and behind it, you can see some stools. In this exercise, I use the stools just to stop the dustpan from falling from the speed of the ball. But then I said, why not use the stools in an exercise? You can put the balls inside, you can spread them on court, you can make the players push the stools as far as they can. You can make it as a competition between themselves. And this is how this exercise was created. Let's go back to my renovating my house. I bought some lamps for the living room, and the lamps came wrapped in this circle. So instead of throwing, immediately in my mind, I saw, it's a target. So I took it and taped it to the floor, as you can see, and added more tape in the middle to make it more difficult for the more experienced players. So I gave them some points. Let's say the big circle is 3 points and so on. And in the middle, it's 0. It's like the penalty. And they really like this exercise. You can put it whenever you want on the floor in different spaces, distances. On the top picture, you can see a rope, a simple rope that I taped to the floor. And it was for a really beginner player who is not really accurate, but I gave her a big space to throw the ball into. I just said, just throw the ball into this square. And then after a few practices, when she became a little better, I just folded the rope and make it a smaller space. And then as practice go on, we made it smaller and smaller, and even the elite players use this rope for a really, really small space for the balls. As Heather told you at the beginning, I'm also a juggling teacher, not just a boccia coach. So I have access to a lot of equipment that you may not have, but you can, this is your creative part, just try and create something similar in whatever you have around. So let me just show you. Of course, I have access to balls to juggle, but I'm standing on something called rolla bola, which is a tube and a board that is for balance. So I took the balls, the tube, and I took the board, and I put it on the floor, and luckily for me, the tube is exactly the size of a boccia ball. So I just put it on the floor, and then to make it more difficult, I put some rings. It's also juggling rings. I put them behind. You can put them in front or wherever you want on top. Just be creative, and gave them an exercise. Okay. In this slide, I'm using sticks, juggling sticks on one picture. And I know that not everybody has juggling sticks. So I'm showing you this video, I will just show it, that I created similar thing, not these sticks. I created it from cardboard, just made a triangle and make it into the same exercise. In this picture, in the right picture, I put the jack at the end for a target. And in this one, I put a ring. You can put whatever you want. You can put a cereal box. So the ball will have to go into a cereal box. You can put a cookie box. The ball should go into a cookie box. Just make it interesting and fun for the players. Okay, this is another game that I want you to see. I will explain a little bit on the game during the video. And again, you can use the annotate option to write which skill do you think we're using in this exercise. So as you can see, this is the blue team. You see the blue balls. They are sitting on one side of the court. And then I have 2 rings in the middle, and the red are sitting on the opposite side. So when the red will throw, I will tell you what was the game. Oh, sorry. Wait. Oh. Okay, let me just go here. Okay, and okay. So we have 2 rings. We have the red ring and the blue ring. And as you know, as you remember, the red is sitting on the left side, but the ring is on the right side. So it's not easy for them to get their balls into the ring. And for the blue, it's the same. When you start with the beginners, maybe you give them 2 or 3 balls each. When you want to make it more difficult, give 6 balls to each player. And then there are many, many balls, or maybe it's the opposite side. I don't know, it depends on your player. And as you can see, they are sitting in specific places. when I play this with beginners, I tell them that they can move. They don't have to sit in a specific place. They can sit all along the 6-meter line, and this helps them with tactics. I see that a lot of people wrote tactics and communication, and fun is always important. As you can see, the players are laughing. It's not their first time playing, and they're asking all the time to play this game. Okay, let's continue. And my final game, I hope you all know the tic-tac-toe game. Let me just clear the annotate. Okay. So this is tic-tac-toe, and I'm sure you all know this game. I did a tic-tac-toe with juggling rings, but again, you can do it with hooks, with whatever you can think about. It can be for beginners, for intermediate, for elite players. Each player can use 6 balls, 12 balls, how many balls you want. You can put the rings closer together, and it's easier because when the player aims for one ring and maybe is not so good, maybe the ball will go into a different ring, and then he still gets points. Because for beginners, even if they don't succeed on doing a row or a line or a diagonal, I give them points for each ball that is inside a ring. So we can make it into a tournament. Let's play, instead of boccia, let's do a tic-tac-toe tournament. And if they are young players, you can give them medals, you can give them prizes. Just think about what they like, and maybe certificates. And for more advanced player, I will separate the rings from each other and make it more far apart, and then it's a little bit more difficult. And another thing that I use in this game that you can use for beginners, if one ball is already in and another player threw the ball to the same ring, you can say, okay, both of you get a point because it was really difficult to get the ball into a ring. But for more experienced players, you say, if there's a blue ball inside already, then the red ball doesn't count. And then they have to think about this game. This is my small idea of practices. I have a lot of other ideas that I didn't put in this webinar, but if you want, you can contact me and ask me whatever you want. I have many ideas to share. I'm happy to share with you. And I will now go over to Itzik and let him continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Orna, for this great and splendid idea. I hope many of them can use it already in their next practice. As you can already understand that according to what we have already heard, and it's quite intuitive, that the progress from beginners to elite players has something to do with how we make the exercise, the practices, gradually harder. But I don't think it's the only thing that differentiates the grassroots level to the elite level, and there's much more into it. So please, let's follow the pathway, let's say, for the elite players, of the grassroots players towards the elite. So we have this group of athletes from all kinds, all sorts. So should we ask ourselves, all of them can reach and eventually be our elite level players for the club, for the national team, and so on and so forth? We will get to the conclusion that only part of them has what it takes and has determination and the ability and skills to be the step forward to the more advanced players. But we should then ask ourselves another question. Are they ready? Are they well equipped with all the things the coach can provide them with? So that's where we mix everything and pour it into one into one whole session. That's the coach's responsibility, and of course with all the staff and the assistants together, we implement the skills as what Orna, for example, mentioned, the communication better, the shot release, and so on and so forth. And eventually, hopefully, one day we reach to a player that has all the skills, all the knowledge that we could have provided him with. But we should ask ourselves, does each and every player eventually reach to the same place? Do we want all of them to get to the same point? And for me, the most important question that I'm gonna discuss later on is this result final? Can we make it better? Can we enhance it in some other ways? So let's discuss about two things that contribute to our players and his abilities. So we can divide them into two things. First of all, let's call the body, physical abilities. It could relate to classification, but either way, we have the given fact, the abilities that he has. The other side would be mind, everything that's relevant to the mind. How he sees the game, tactics, strategy, psychology, how tense he is, and so on. But I would like to ask you, do you think there's another, let's say, field or area that can be in such kind of intermediate between these two parts that can have the athlete and improve them? So please use the chat function in order to hear out your ideas for what can we use else in order to improve our athlete. Please feel free to write your comment on the chat function. And it's gonna be science. How science can help us and how can we contribute the science into our side and let polish the abilities of the players. So let's have fun with science. I know that it might sound weird to you, but actually it can be done. As Orna already said, you saw how fun the practices can be. That the key factor there, it's innovation. Try to be creative, innovate, have more and more ideas. So basically what we've seen is we worked on various skills, different skills, like precision, communication, but you used different approaches, different styles, different ideas, and by that we managed to improve these skills of the players. I'm gonna now focus on synergy of different fields of science. Let's say physiotherapists, psychologists, physiologists, and nutrition, and so on. All this information, all this knowledge, basically is power. That's the famous saying, and we can take it to our advantage and use it. The world is in our hand by one click of a mouse, so we can use them and the knowledge in order to implement these ideas from the various experts and see how they can make our athlete better. Two other options and areas that are also relevant for improvement are performance analysis, which means what the athlete think he did versus what he actually do. We can show him the progress that he made from doing this exercise in day one, and then after a month or after 3 months and so on, and see the improvement. And if there's no improvement, so let's see what is done wrong. Performance enhancement, how these performances can always improve, and how can I be better? How can I stay fit? How can I make it longer? So that's where we have gadget, let's say, or innovative, creative ideas. Here in Israel, we use this device that is called PlaySide Go camera. As you can see, of course, it's a camera, but it's much more than a camera. It was developed by an Israeli company and that is now selling this device all over the world. And before I show you some videos, you can, of course, place it wherever you want on court and film it as much as you like and get from different angles. Let's see the videos. Here you can see a courtside view of training. You can see them watching, and therefore afterwards we can analyze it. Okay, that's the PlaySide logo. And another option that you can place it on the player's point of view and see the throwing and have his how he sees the game itself. But the great advantages that it's not only a camera. You can use it. You can use camera on your phone as well and have it saved on you. The great achievement is that this data afterwards is transferred into the website or the application on your phone, and it gives you analysis of what you just did. For example, how long you worked out, how intense it was. There's a lot of functions that it allows you to do. If you want, I can afterwards elaborate and tell you about it. But also it allows us to share this information also with one player to another, between coaches, to share ideas. And what I wanted to emphasize is that you can send a short video, you can edit as well and send it. And by that you can send it to the physiotherapist, to the psychologist, and see how he reacts. And by instant, you can receive and get much more information from you. So the advantages of using these devices or the scientific parts, let's say, of practice, that it increases curiosity and involvement. Everybody will start asking you, can I use that? Oh, what is that? Can I use that? It could be also in Boccia or other sports as well. And it engages the people to do and try more. A lot of variety and diversity of options that are now open to you. And for me, what I use it, at least not quite as much as well, is that it allows us to track setbacks and problems, which I or the athlete itself as cannot see it himself. And I share the ideas and ask, and I get responses very quickly. All of this combined together creates and eventually gets us to involvement. All the system, the players, the coaches, the staff that supports them get empowered and involved, and makes it very much fun and creativity by using more and more devices. I just gave you one example. Of course, there are much more. And before I finish, there's a video I would like to share with you that can summarize very well this webinar. It was created by Michaela, and it was done very nicely.